Hi, so I want to talk about Merlin's story. I'm here in the round pen with Mia. She's just loose, so I'm going to have to pay attention to her while I'm talking about Merlin's story. And I chose her because even though she's not black, and it's about a story about um, a black Arabian stallion, Merlin's story. She's a quarter horse, and actually she's not black. She's a Gruella color. But her mommy, her dam was black, so that's how you get a Gorilla, is a black horse and a dun horse. And so her mom was black, and she was a beautiful black horse. I've seen pictures. But I want to talk about Merlin. And Merlin, Midnight Merlin, is the black Arabian stallion, and he was living at Epona with Linda Kohanov. And he lived with two mares and was especially gentle, thoughtful, and respectful horse. But at one time, you couldn't even walk into his stall or put a halter on him without a serious fight. This horse couldn't stand to be touched, so he would attack people and horses alike. And when Linda Kohanov took on the project of rehabilitating him, she realized that all the so-called enlightened training methods and therapeutic techniques involves some sort of touch. There's T-touch, massage, acupuncture, and chiropractic, actually. That's another one. Attempting to touch Merlin for his own good was not only dangerous for the human, but so offensive to the horse that it was counterproductive. So Linda decided to see how far she needed to stand from Merlin in order for the horse to calm down. Her goal was to start from this place and move closer day by day, inch by inch, until she was finally touching him. Instead, she found Merlin demanded she stand in the same place day after day. It was about 5 feet from his body. And if she even leaned in, he would pin his ears and begin to show first signs of the fight or flight response. Thinking that perhaps she would have to stand there without an obvious goal until Merlin finally trusted her, she spent approximately 10 minutes each day for a couple of weeks standing with a stallion 5 feet away from him in his corral. One day, she felt a pulsing sensation against her shoulder as she stood near him. Absent-mindedly, she reached up and pushed this against the slight pressure in the air, and Merlin gently stepped to the side, the same reaction you would expect from a horse who knows how to move away from pressure when you touch his body. Only it seemed that as far as Merlin was concerned, his body started 5 feet away from his hide, so 5 feet out from him, he could feel the energy. Linda thought that this was perhaps a form of hypervigilance the horse had developed through abusive treatment. Curious, Linda performed some massage moves and T-touches. These are T-touches. It's great technique. In the air about 5 feet away from his body, and found that sure enough, the horse lowered his head, licked and chewed, and the same relaxation responses you would expect from touching a horse directly in this way. Over time, Linda saw the same dynamic in horses she met on her workshops around the country. Horses had to be muzzled to be groomed, for instance, seemed to be the same hypervigilance. Finding the horse's spatial body and treating that space as if it were indeed where his body started, she could quickly gain the animal's trust and help his human caretakers do the same. Such horses would eventually allow the people in their lives to step in and touch them when necessary, as long as these people respected their spatial boundary. I don't know if you can see that. She's scratching herself. It's funny. Over time, everyone at Epona began to notice there were several layers with horses like Merlin. The innermost layer was consistent day by day, and we began referring to this as the layer of personal space. Yet in approaching Merlin in a larger arena, we noticed that he seemed to have at least 2 other predictable places where he would have a physical response to their proximity. The outermost layer, quite a distance away, became what was known as the environmental awareness layer. This was where Merlin would first lift up his head and take visible notice of them. The middle layer, about 20 feet from his body, became known as the layer of connection. because they found that if you stopped there and relaxed, Merlin lifted his head and looked directly at you, he would most likely be compelled to come to you. And they began to notice that all horses had some subtle responses to proximity in the same layered pattern as Merlin, and that they could actually train a horse to come up to us in a big pasture by working consciously with the spatial hotspots. And finally, they began to notice that humans have the same sorts of voluntary physical responses to proximity, and that highly sensitive humans, like highly sensitive horses, feel safer and become more responsive to others when their need for space is acknowledged. So, you know, when you go up to somebody and you feel like this tension and maybe they kind of pull away or step back, that's kind of what it's talking about. They're feeling that boundary. You're getting close to their boundary and they want to step back. So one thing we do when trying to determine the boundaries of the horse and is to kind of be aware. So if I'm going towards her, I have to be aware of that. And if she's coming towards me, she kind of has to, kind of pay attention to my space. So if I'm going to her, I'm about 10, 15 feet from her. She's looking away. I know she's in the shadow. Hopefully you can see it. I'm looking at her hind end. I'm going to go around this way. It's a little safer. And as I'm approaching her, if I start feeling like right here, I feel boundary with her. This is probably, that layer of connection. I'm already connecting with her. And when I feel that, that's a good thing to do is just to rock back and sigh. And then if I feel like she's okay with it, I'll come in closer. Right now she's just kind of nibbling and not really paying much attention to me. And I would say right here, about 5 feet away, is also another layer of connection with her. So I'm going to step back and sigh. See, she's really not minding me at all. She's kind of ignoring me and smelling everything. But the same thing, if she's coming towards me and I want her to stay away, I can also use my body, the tools that we have right now. I'm unfortunately between the fence and the horse, and I shouldn't be doing that, but I'm doing it for the video. And, if you're approaching the horse, you're the one that has to be aware. And if you feel that, you rock back and sigh, and you're just really letting out everything, all your, kind of the frustration or energy that you're having maybe. And, the horse hears that and reacts to it. And then you can possibly approach a little closer. Some horses, perhaps they've been abused or they're wild. They're going to take a lot longer to be able to approach comfortably. Mia is 12 years old and, she's been around people and hopefully for a few years she's been treated very well. So she doesn't have a lot of nervous energy right here, right now with me, even talking. She's used to me. Perhaps a new person coming in, she might be a little more nervous about. But just that's one of the things to be kind of aware of when you're meeting a new horse and their energy and their layers of personal space. So that's Merlin's story. I do want to show up close. There's a diagram of the layers of the energy field. And I just want to kind of show it up close. And as you can see, the horse is in the middle. And this outer layer is that environmental layer. That can be as far as the outside of the arena. It can be quite a distance away. And then there's the layer of connection, which is right when you're kind of getting in their personal space. And then the layer of personal space is right around them, if you can see that. So this is a great visual of what I'm trying to explain, and that's the layers of the energy field. Thank you, Kelly Irwin, and that's the end. Thank you.